Welcome to the Spike Feed, your leading Magic the Gathering podcast. What is up? My name is Curtis, and I'm just your typical Spike. On the air with me, in video. What's up, Cameron?
This is throwing me off so much, man. I mean, most of the time I'm like kind of, because I'm so bored with you, leaning to my side, falling asleep, and I'm really having to pay attention to focus.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
now you're going to have to actually act like you're paying attention to me. Uh,
It'll be hard, I know.
yeah, but
But
for those
yeah.
of you who don't know what we're referencing, we are actually attempting to record ourselves for a video version of the podcast while we're recording the audio as well. Eventually, we will be on Twitch and have streaming times, and that way you can interact with us live. But this is kind of what I would call a soft launch. We're giving it a shot, seeing what we think. Cameron is dying on the inside because of our lighting and lack of makeup. I don't have a hair person in my house like he does. So, it's quite the adjustment for him.
Indeed. Indeed.
I mean,
I'll
Cameron,
make do.
do you have craft food services come in for just the podcast?
Yeah. I'm hopeful my wife will just like walk in here with like a platter of olives and hummus, you know?
I know you're very specific about those kinds of things, but
Yeah.
regardless of any of that, we're a Magic podcast, and there's a lot of Magic to talk about this week. This week we've got to get to the down and dirty business of talking spoilers. We pride ourselves on hitting that 50% marker, and we will do so yet again. But we like to start out every week talking about what we've been playing. So, Cameron, let's start with you, man. What have you been playing this week?
Yeah, so I'm still lamenting the loss of the Legacy Gauntlet. So much so that I decided to build a deck from the Legacy Gauntlet and use that for Magic. And so I played the Grixis Pyromancer deck, which is Young Pyromancer. I think it had 2 Thing and Ice, your Snapcasters, and then just your complement of low cost spells to kind of fuel Young Pyromancer or Thing in the Ice. And I haven't actually had a real chance. Nathan and I were both really up on Thing in the Ice. Like we're losing ourselves over this card so much. And I think the expectations have been tempered because, we're 2 months in, and this card really hasn't made the impact that I think a lot of people are expecting it was going to have, at least in Modern and Legacy. It is making some noise in Vintage, which is pretty cool. And I think it does have a place in Legacy. I think you can power through and get it to activate very quickly or to transform very quickly if the card draws are right. And against certain decks, especially like creature swarm decks, like I would say like Elves or Merfolk, Thing in the Ice is really, really good. I've actually just been kind of play testing it a little bit, and I've been running it through a Legacy League. It doesn't do too well against
Combo,
combo, exactly. But I played against an Elves opponent, and just it was hilarious to win that handily with a 7/8 creature swinging in, and being able to also using the sacrifice a creature from Young Pyromancer to activate Cabal Therapy that bounces all their creatures to their hand from the Thing in the Ice trigger, and then you get to remove something with Cabal Therapy.
Oh, it's a combo.
Man,
It's a combo.
Sweet combo there, man. Super fun, super good in that sense. But it really suffers to miracles. It really suffers to combo, like I said. So it's not like the best deck, but I'm having a blast playing with it.
Cameron, if you want to improve the Miracles matchup, have you tried playing the right cards? Because as we discussed last week, that's the problem. That's why Miracles is so good, is people are just playing the wrong cards. So next time, play the right cards, and you'll beat that deck.
I know. It's weird. I read every single day articles dedicated to Legacy, and I still have yet to find what those right cards are.
Yeah, it's like the Ark of the Covenant. You're going to be searching for a while, man.
Right. Yeah.
So I've actually been really focused on Standard lately. So it's kind of been a big turn for me because I've been such a legacy focused player for the last 2 years especially. I mean, I play modern, and I played occasional standard, but now I'm just kind of trying to turn that. A large part of that is because of my community and just the legacy scene has just been so inactive. It's been so disheartening that I really just need to play Magic, and that means playing standard where I live. So I played at I want to say it's 25, 30 people at one of the bigger card shops in KC called Spanky's, and it's like a Monday night tournament, and I showed up with Grixis. I beat the mono blue prison deck, which I should not beat. It was very, very lucky. I beat a Sigil to the Empty Throne enchantment, like Enchantress deck. I beat green-white, and then I lost to green-white, which is the deck it's supposed to be like Grixis' best matchup. And then the red-white humans deck, I got house by in the top 8. And that was largely just mana screw. I played 5 lands in 2 games. And it happens. And the Grixis deck, while I love it and I love playing it in paper, it's certainly not my favorite deck in standard right now because of the red-white humans and green-white deck. While if you look at the 2 things on paper, you're like, okay, well, I'm playing Kalidas and Fiery Temper, and how am I not just housing that deck, right? But the thing that you lose is the significant amount of mana trouble that Grixis can have. I mean, you can just draw a hand that all the lands that you play are tapped, right? And they're going to just crush you. The other problem that you have is the removal is so conditional anymore that if your removal doesn't line up with what they have, you lose, right? I ran into this where I had a Fiery Temper without, not Fiery Temper, Fiery Impulse without Spell Mastery, and I just got crushed by Sylvan Advocates that I could not kill because I didn't have the correct removal spell, right? So that Grixis is really good in certain metagames, and I feel like if I'm playing against the red-white humans deck specifically, like I was main decking 3 Radiant Flames. Like that's how serious I was about beating this deck, and I still lost to it. But I feel like if you're in that kind of meta with a lot of mono-white humans and red-white humans, you're probably in good shape, right? The green-white deck, God, I mean, just the presence of Avacyn, they can just play around anything. And then online and what I'm moving towards in paper is Bant Company, Bant Humans.
Sure.
There's a number of reasons for this, but most notably is I feel like Collected Company is a steal right now. The card shop I was going to was selling Collected Companies for $17. And I mean, honestly, I feel like it's a modern staple. I feel like
it is. Yeah.
3 years down the line, people are going to be like, Collected Companies were what? I mean, there is an actual opportunity for it to, I guess, get banned like Birthing Pod. I don't think so, but I'm just saying there's the risk factor involved. But I just think it's a modern staple, and people are just getting rid of it for fear of rotation, which is still several months away. So I might as well just play the deck, right?
Why not? Yeah.
And so I've been playing it on Magic Online leagues, and I've played against the red-white humans deck 4 matches in a row.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very popular because it's very cheap and it's very good. And I'm 50-50 against the deck. But I mean, the banned humans deck, I'm going to run through the league a few times and record it and post my kind of run-throughs on YouTube just to kind of put my new equipment through its paces. But it's interesting to me how similar these standard decks are. Like white is clearly the best color in standard, and it's not close.
Hands down, yeah.
And like white's got the best removal as well, and then green has the best card draw. Like what is happening? I don't understand, right?
Topsy-turvy.
It is very topsy-turvy, but Collected Company is something that I see myself playing for a while, so I'm just kind of jumping in and playing that. Though I would say the frustration with the banned humans deck is, I don't really feel like I'm playing skilled Magic when I play it. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I kind of just play dudes, and if I resolve them correctly or whatever, I mean, there are decisions. It's not completely asleep at the wheel, but there are draws where you just feel like you didn't do anything and you just won, especially draws involving Thalia's Lieutenant. So that's...
So
go ahead.
I just have a question for you about, we're not finance guys, but when is the right time to snap up Collected Companies, do you think? Because I think you're totally right. Modern staple for sure. I mean, is like $15 a reasonable price? Because I feel like they're going to go to 40 in a year's time.
So the question is, are you going to play with it in standard? Right? Like, if you
Yeah.
know you're not going to play it in standard, I would wait till the pre-release for the set in which it rotates.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can get it for nothing. And again, this might be an experience that's very, close to my heart or my situation, because, I had a moment at the Return to Ravnica pre-release, right? I believe Scars of Mirrodin block rotated in. I traded one Shockland that I opened for 16 of the Scars of Mirrodin block lands that were rotating.
Okay.
Right? Because, especially if people are standard-only players, they will get any kind of value they can out of their cards that are rotating. And
Sure.
you can really capitalize on that. Now, Modern's changed that a little bit. Modern's popular. Like, I know it's popular at your shop, so that might be a difference, right? And Collected Company, I think it's going to go lower than it is now, but I know I'm going to be playing it for, what is that, 8 weeks, 10 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm probably going to make that money back out of it. Plus, I just can't say no to instant speed Reflector Mage. I mean, I know,
Right? Yeah.
I know it's like a saying, the first two Godfather films are good. Everybody has that opinion. Everybody knows it, but I just can't say no to it. Like, I want to do that thing, right?
So good.
So, Cameron, let's take a quick break. Come back. We've got a million spoilers to cover, and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to talk spoilers. Cameron.
Yeah, man.
We are running a little bit behind on this show, and we got the benefit of having more cards to talk about as a result, right?
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
we're definitely not going to hit them all, but I think we have to start here, because this was the Monday after we recorded our last episode. What do you first of all, why don't you read for us Emrakul, the Promised End?
Yeah, Emrakul, the Promised End. He's a legendary creature, Eldrazi, with a power and toughness of a paltry 13/13. And Emrakul, the Promised End, costs one less to cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. When you cast Emrakul, you gain control of target opponent during during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. Flying, trample, protection from instants. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, this seems like a fixed Emrakul. I mean, I don't think anybody, even if you're playing Emrakul, original Emrakul, the 15/15 baddie, nobody likes that card. Nobody likes that card. No. I mean, it hurts when it happens, and the Annihilator and everything else that it does is just not fun. This, in a lot of ways, seems fixed from that. The protection from instants is very interesting to me. But I like the idea that, yeah, you're going to get hosed and you're going to lose a turn technically, but at least there's a possibility of you being able to draw something to deal with this card in a relatively efficient manner. So, I'm all about like looking at this card as far as like, how do I defeat it in Modern? How do I defeat it in Legacy? Not so much how I'm going to play with it. But yeah, I mean, the one the one less to cast it is kind of like this interesting reverse Tarmogoyf, which is also fascinating to me, where, you could possibly get this out on turn 7 or 8, which is interesting.
Yeah. For me, I have trouble processing him for older formats, because it feels like any situation you'd want him, you could come up with a different card. Even with the cost reduction, I mean, you're still going to have to cheat him into play or ramp into him, in which case might as well just ramp into another Eldrazi. So in older formats, I'm not in love with him. And in Standard, he's an interesting case. So the Eldrazi ramp decks have not been doing well. The lone Eldrazi deck that's doing okay is the blue-red Eldrazi, and that's much more like Drowner of Hope, Reality Smasher, those kinds of things. I mean, it'll play an Ulamog here or there, but it's not, a dedicated ramp deck. And what's interesting about Emrakul, the Promised End, is in a ramp deck, I don't think he's that much better than Ulamog. And so, obviously taking control of your opponent's turn is cool. But if you're playing against a deck that just has a bunch of creatures on the board, and their hands basically like the aforementioned red-white humans deck, I don't know that you're really doing much. You know what I mean? Like, so it is a very, very strong card. The place that kind of popped in my brain to use this, interestingly, was black-white control. Because you just play him as part of the long game.
Sure.
And then you can just utilize him whenever, after you've kind of ground out the game to take control, win it. And then, like, you might already have a Sorin on board. I mean, of course, flipping this to Sorin's plus is just, like, super magnificent, right? But
right, yeah.
But you just have him on the board along with Sorin to kind of finish it out. But I mean, in that deck, you're going to have instant sorcery land, probably Planeswalker in the yard, and so you're much more likely to be able to get benefits from that cost reduction. So I like this card. I think it's a very, very good card. It's hard to construct a home for it right now, but that's not to say that there won't be. And I think you're going to get a lot of cool stories out of this card, right? Where you take over the opponent's turn, do this, but then they top deck the right thing, and
exactly.
It's definitely, like, in terms of fun factor, he is way beyond the fun factor for Last Emrakul, in which I think we can all agree there was no fun, right?
No, nothing.
Anyway, next card that kind of got spoiled after that was Coax from the Blind Eternities. This is 2 and a blue for a sorcery. And it says, you may choose an Eldrazi card you own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. So essentially, a, quote, wish effect. We haven't seen wish effects in standard. I mean, have they printed one since you've been back, Cameron?
When was... I don't know. I don't think so.
So it's been a while. I think there was Glittering Wish in Future Sight.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody out there knows. But... what do you think of this guy, Cameron?
Yeah, it seems good. It seems interesting that, I mean, I'm trying to, once again, I'm putting my Eternal Play on and wondering, okay, so somebody surgically extracts your Emrakul, and you're playing Show and Tell or something like that. Is this a card where maybe you're using that in order to get your second Emrakul? I mean, like, the instances of that actually happening in that order are extremely small. So I don't think it really has that much application. But it is kind of interesting to think of this maybe even like in the Nahiri control deck that you're seeing in Modern right now, where you are running an Emrakul, maybe the one does get out, and this could work in that sense. But yeah, it's very nuanced as far as like when you're actually going to be using it.
Yeah, I do want to mention there are a few cards that are pretty interesting that you could go get. All is Dust, for example, is considered an Eldrazi card.
It is, isn't it?
You can tutor for a Wrath, which is pretty gross. I mean, this seems like a Tron card to me. I feel like it's likely too slow for Legacy. I mean, you might have it in Show and Tell, but it's kind of hard to... I mean, you're after Grizzlebrand in that deck 90% of the time anyway.
Sure.
So it's pretty good, but again, I think Modern is kind of where the shell is going to be. But man, that's going to feel bad whenever they Coax from the Blind Eternity, and then the All is Dust is coming, or the Ulamog's coming, and there's just nothing you can do, right? And it is possible also that a deck like the Legacy Eldrazi aggro deck just uses this for some kind of weird toolbox in the board. They might bring it in from the side to like go get an Ulamog if you have a moat. There's just really weird corner cases. But I think this card is going to be the kind of card that costs like nothing for like 3 years. And then all of a sudden it's going to be, something that's a mainstay in a deck. Right?
For sure.
All right, Cameron, I'm doing you the favor.
Whoa.
Of letting you read about Thalia. Okay?
Are you sure? I mean,
well, in this show we have a long-standing history of me always reading the Jace, and I think that's a tradition that should continue.
Okay.
But I got to throw you a bone every once in a while. I gotta make it like worth your while to be on the show, And so this is like a little treat. This is like a little thank you from me. So go ahead, Cameron.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. So, Thalia, Heretic, is that Cathar? Is that how you
Cathar.
pronounce that? Cathar? Okay. She is a legendary creature, human soldier with first strike, power and toughness of 3/2. Creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. This is just like a no-brainer going straight into Death and Taxes, I think. It's so incredibly powerful. She's so good. 3/2 power and toughness with first strike is better than Thalia original, in a lot of ways. But like my mind was swirling with ways of using this and back to basics in the same deck, where there might be some possibility in application there. Where if you're playing just like a strictly blue-white deck, back to basics could come back and it could really hurt your opponents, where lands or 12 post or anything like that. I see this being like an instant you're going to put this in the sideboard in that sense.
Wow, Cameron, I don't know where to start with this card. So cards that I've had this level of reaction to would be Thought-Knot Seer and Snapcaster Mage, like just ones that as soon as you see, you think, oh no.
Yeah, right.
This is huge. So I think we have to kind of break this down by format. That's like how big of a card I think this is. So first of all, if you have like this card is pre-selling right now for $7. Okay? And that's not to say it won't go down. It might go down. But this is a card that you're going to likely play if you play Legacy Modern. I mean, it's one worth getting. I am going to aggressively seek the pack foil, because I don't know if you've seen the other artwork, which is fine, but this artwork I think is far superior. So this is the one we're going with, right? And a little background. So I love Maverick. I love Thalia. I love the original artwork. I love the original card. And knowing that Thalia was likely going to be in this set, I didn't think there was any way they could come close to the power of the original one. Well, they got there. So let's start with Legacy. I think we can both agree this is an auto snap include 4 of in Death and Taxes. Like,
absolutely.
No brainer.
Yeah.
Maverick, it's a little bit of a trickier proposition. I think it's going to be a 2 of in that deck. The 3 spot is likely very crowded. I mean, it might go all the way up to a 4 of. The problem is you can't green Sun Zenith for it, which is kind of obnoxious. But also, like, this helps you with matchups. Like, if you're Maverick, a lot of the matchups that this is really locking down were already in your favor anyway. But I just want to break this down because I think people might have missed some of the older format stuff. So first of all, it makes your opponent's fetch lands come into play tapped, so they can't utilize them their first turn.
Oh, man. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Duh.
If their wastelands come into play tapped, so you can wasteland their wasteland without them reaping any benefit from it. Sneak attack. They can't sneak attack in creatures while she's in play. I mean, they can, but nothing happens. They can't attack. I mean, this card is nightmarish for Delver. There's not a single basic land in that deck. They are a tempo deck, and if their lands are coming to play tapped and their creatures are coming to play tapped, you can't even, like, it wrecks them. And I just think it's going to be a very, very, very good card in Death and Taxes. It might actually make Death and Taxes good enough to jump to tier 1, which I think we could, again, both agree that it's not a tier 1 deck right now. But, like, they're playing Bramaz right now. That card is terrible compared to this, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So Modern is where I think this card is going to have the most massive impact. I think this will make Green-White Humans an actual top tier deck. I want to paint a scenario for you, Cameron. You ready?
Okay.
Turn 1, Champion of the Parish. You know that card, right? He's a 1-mana 1/1, and every time a human comes into play, he gets a 1/1 counter.
Okay.
Okay, so turn 2, Thalia.
All right.
Turn 3, this Thalia. Okay. Turn 4, Thalia's Lieutenant. They're probably dead. Right?
Sure.
I have to do the math. But if you have both Thalias in play and a Champion of the Parish, I think they're at 8 on turn 3, every spell costs 1 more to play, all their lands that are non-basic interplay tapped, all their creatures interplay tapped.
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like a busted opening, right? And what I'm painting is not crazy. These are 4-ofs in this fictional deck. But one Thalia doesn't, like old Thalia and new Thalia don't legend rule each other. It's not like Planeswalkers. And so, I mean, people keep saying hate bears, but I think you can actually be more aggressive with her in play. And it makes that deck's bad matchups really good. So, like, imagine, for example, Tron and Scapeshift. Decks that, if you are green-white hate bears in Modern, you're just dead. Like, you cannot, if they have an active allocate, you can't do anything. But this makes them multiple turns slower. Just awful.
For sure.
And especially Tron. Like, Tron with this. So, I think it's great. Standard, it's going to be a really important card to the green-white mirrors. Feels like whoever has one on board first probably is going to win the game.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, do you have anything to add to any of that, Cameron? Or?
Oh, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is with this, like, let's unban Splinter Twin because, it's great now.
No, Cameron. No more.
Totally kidding. No, I mean, I love this card. I think it's great. Yeah, it's $7. It seems like a totally fair price for a card that conceivably will be in a deck forever, right? So, I mean, seems great.
Yeah, it's very, very, very pushed. And, I mean, while I love it as somebody that plays green-white and I love aggressive, like that kind of aggressive strategy, man, how can a control deck ever beat this in Modern? Like, this just feels like control is even more dead, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay, next card I want to talk about, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. Now, look, there's some meld cards going on here. I'm not super in love with the meld mechanic. I mean, I think it might be usable with this card and the land card. And we'll talk about it with the Angels. But I think a lot of times these cards are just going to have to stand on their own, right? And the Hanweir Garrison, I think, is a card that very much stands on its own. And maybe it's just because I've been playing the red-white humans deck over and over and over again. That I thought about this card. So it's 2 and a red for a human soldier. It's a 2/3. And whenever it attacks, put 2 1/1 red human creature tokens onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking. So it's a kind of a mini hero of Blade Hold effect. Would obviously be the top end of that curve. Plays unbelievably well with Thalia's Lieutenant. I think this card is a little bit better than people are thinking because they're all wrapped up in the meld thing. What do you think, Cameron?
I totally agree. It's hard to remove myself from the meld thing, but you're totally right. This just seems like a straight up standard all-star as far as, putting into attacking creatures. I mean, it's exactly what this deck, or that red-white deck wants as far as like being hyper aggressive. And I think it's great.
Okay, so I'm giving you all the good cards, Cameron. I want you to read Gisela.
Gisela. Gisela, the Broken Blade, cost 2 colorless white, legendary creature, Angel Horror with a power and toughness of 4/3, flying, first strike, and lifelink. At the beginning of your upkeep, at the end step, if you both own and control Gisela, the Broken Blade creature, and named the other creature named Bruna, the Fading Light, exile them, then meld them into Brizella, Voice of the Nightmares. So I'm just all sorts of confused on the meld mechanic, and I really want to get your input on that. This card on itself, though, flying, first strike, and lifelink at a 4/3 for 4 seems super good. Like, I don't care about the other cards because if you're casting this, once again, it seems like it's all in your favor.
The odds are definitely in your favor if you have this resolved, right? It's pretty close to a Baneslayer Angel. I mean, there's a reason this is the Mythic Angel. It's really, really, really good. Again, white gets another tool. It should be pointed out that it doesn't beat Avacyn in combat because of the indestructible trigger, but post them actually casting it. Like if the Avacyn's already resolved, they pass the turn back to you. That's a great answer. though it does die, I mean, the 3 toughness is notable, right? So if the flip trigger happens, that's worth pointing out. But this card is super strong. I think it might be a little overhyped right now because I don't know that it has a super great home. But, I mean, the stats are there, and the pedigree is there. I mean, it is a 1 mana and slightly less good Baneslayer Angel, but it's very, very, very similar. And this standard is actually very similar to the one that Baneslayer Angel thrived in. So it's not crazy to think, because that was like there was a Naya deck and there was a Bant deck, and that was the Noble Hierarch standard, right? And so Baneslayer Angel fits pretty well in that. That was the standard where Jace wasn't good enough to see play, Jace the Mind Sculptor, because everybody was playing these like Bloodbraid Elf decks and whatever. The original gen, the OG gen. But no, this card is strong, though. I'm playing amateur finance guy. I think if you open it at the pre-release, you might wanna ship it. Just because, right? But should I read the other card and then we can talk about the meld mechanic?
Please, yeah, because I'm so confused about one of those parts of it.
Okay, so Bruna the Fading Light is 5 white for a 5/7. When you cast Bruna the Fading Light, you may return target angel or human creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Flying Vigilance. And so there is no meld text on this one. The meld text is on the other creature. So this card, I think we could agree, is not nearly as standard playable. I mean, it might see play as a one-of in some kind of angel, control deck kind of thing. But this feels like the more casual of the two. It is the rare, not the mythic rare. But they meld. So the way that the text reads on Gisela is at the beginning of your instep, if you both own and control Gisela and Bruna, you exile them, and then they come back into play as this giant 9/10 thingy-majigger, right? Sorry, I don't have a graphic for it.
Yeah, Benefer or like what other couples can we meld together for this?
I feel like Benefer is the most commonly used, right?
Yeah. I know there's other one. Brangelina, yeah, that's the other one, and I'm sure there are other ones out there that I don't follow, right? So
it is slightly disconcerting that WotC would stoop to tabloid naming. But
so my question is, what would our combo name be when we melded?
Well, Cardis is just bad. So I think we have to do last names. So I think we would be McNauer.
McNauer is great.
Yeah,
I love that.
I think that's strong. I think that's super strong. That sounds like a Scottish medieval war captain, right?
I see either that or an Irish punk band, one of the two.
Right. Okay, I like that. Yeah. So that's definitely us. But I think the meld mechanic, it's probably more usable on the creature that also has the land that gives it haste as kind of an incidental benefit. I mean, you're...
That's my question, though. When these two cards meld together, does that creature... Can it attack then, or is it similar to just a flip card where it's technically still on the battlefield so it can attack, or how does that work?
So it happens at the end step. So with the Benefer, they have to do it if they're both in play. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So with the land and the creature, you have to tell the land to do it. You have to activate it for it to occur.
Okay, that's right. Right. Okay.
And so this one, you don't have a choice. And then, the flip side says something like your opponent can cast spells that cost 3 or more, but you can still they can still go Coco, Reflector Mage, and then both angels go back to your hand. Yeah. And then it's you just got massively 2-for-1s, and that's terrible, right? So I don't think, especially if you have both of these angels in play, how are you not even winning the game anyway? What world do you have a 4/3 and 5/7 flying, and you're like, God, I just got to break through. I need that 9/10, right?
And here's my note of complaint. This just seems really awkward and weird for limited, where like I love these cards that if they're a flip card, they stand on their own and they can be a game winner on their own. I mean, like, Gisela, if you're playing that in limited, yeah, you're probably you're winning, right? I mean, that's great on its own, but like having to like I just don't understand the limited design of this meld thing, because the chances of you getting both these cards to play together seems so far out of reach.
Yeah, I guess that's just when it does happen, it'll be a story, right? Like it'll be
I
like,
guess,
oh,
yeah.
super cool. There are some lower rarity meld cards, but at the same time, this is screams casual mechanic to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that there won't be some tournament level play with it, or it won't happen. It won't be a great story, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of Benefer decks out there. You know what I mean? And so
yeah.
It's fine. It's interesting. Let's just do this once. And by the way, multiple people have pointed out, though, how come Emrakul, how come the other Eldrazi don't have colorists in their casting costs? Like, we made this big, all this noise about doing that with Kozilek and why we did it with Kozilek, and then Emrakul shows up and there's no colorless mana symbols in his casting costs. It's like, okay. So we just
don't
did
get
that
me
for,
started.
we just did that for one set, and it like totally like impacted all these Eternal formats and was this huge problem. And for what? Now we're not even going to use it the next set? Like, okay. It's very weird. It's very weird. Okay, so last card I really wanted to go deep on here. And I'll have you read it, Cameron. Unsubstantiate.
Yeah, man. Unsubstantiated. Cost 1 and a blue. It's an instant. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. What's not to like about this? It's part of a cryptic command in some ways. It's great. I mean, is it technically a counter spell? Is that how that works then?
So, no. Like, it would just return to their hand when it's on the stack. So you would counter it for a turn. So it's like a remand, but you don't get to draw a card. So it's like nerfed remand, if that makes sense. But it's also got the flexibility of it can bounce the creature off the battlefield, which you're trading in a lot of the card value for a little extra utility. So I mean, obviously, look, it's not as good as remand, right? But okay.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself playing with this kind of a card?
I mean, at least in standard, it seems great. I mean, if I'm playing, an Eternal format, Vapor Snag seems better in some instances. Remand seems better in other instances. I mean, this could kind of bridge that gap, but I think both of those separate cards have more utility on their own that make them better. So this is a great card for standard, I think. And limited, I think it's incredible. It's a good card, but, beyond standard, I don't see it being played too much.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I think, and the standard deck it's likely going to be in is going to be a tempo deck. It could be blue-white humans, which has been a thing. You might finally get to play your Invocation of Saint Traft, Cameron, which I know you've been dying to mess with.
I've been brewing that like mad, trying to figure out how it can work.
Yeah, but it seems like if you're playing your blue-white humans. It's really obnoxious, and it's probably better than Declaration in Stone in most instances because they try Radiant Flamesing or something, and you're able to hit them for 7 more damage or whatever. Rattle Chains is also like that's the 2-mana 2/1 flying with flash. There might be some kind of tempo deck that has like cheap blue flyers or something like that, or Storm Chaser Mage. So that kind of a card is where I think this guy fits. But I think this card is kind of getting a little underrated, or maybe control players are thinking that they need to latch onto it when it's really more of a, Delver style card, or something, a deck like that. So we've just gotten through the early stages of this set, Cameron. What do you think so far?
Overall, I'm totally fine with the set. I wouldn't say I'm like as excited about this set particularly as I was with Shadows over Innistrad. I think that one was just kind of a home run knockout of the park. This one seems good. It seems great. It seems to complement a lot of stuff for standard. So, I'm all about it. I think it'll be good.
Okay. Well, tell you what, let's get out of this segment, come back, and just have a brief chat about Game of Thrones. All right, Cameron. So before we get out of here, I think we would be remiss if we didn't nerd out a little bit over Game of Thrones. So obviously, we're big, huge fans. Am I the? Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I the one that loaned you the first book?
So you were the one who told me about it, though. You didn't loan me the book, but because I went and bought it from Barnes and Noble. I remember picking that up, but you were totally like pushing it on me like you wouldn't believe. And you had like a really good track record. You had set me up with Neil Gaiman, American Gods, and Stardust, and I was like, okay, Curtis seems to know his nerd fantasy lore pretty well. I'll trust him on this and start.
I don't know my magic lore very well, just to be clear.
Yeah,
just to be clear.
Fair enough. Yeah, but yeah, you are the one who introduced me to Game of Thrones.
So it's been a runaway success as a TV show. I don't know if you've seen, like, I think they had 9 million people watch the finale,
awesome.
Which on our premium cable channel is insane. So obviously we're going to talk a little bit about spoilers, so please turn this off if you don't want to engage in the spoilers, though I don't know how you've missed them on the internet.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the last two episodes kind of broadly, because I think that's kind of where we need to start. What did you think, man, of those last two, which have kind of been one big movie?
Yeah. Overall, I really enjoyed the episodes. I'm all about the characters in Game of Thrones, and Jon Snow I've been promised for over 10 years that I've been reading these books that he's going to be something. He's going to be something big and huge, and it's so nice to see certain things kind of pay off, or all these theories that I think everybody knew about Jon Snow, at least if you read the books. It's like, okay, I know he's somebody important, and with with Lyanna Stark and, Rhaegar Targaryen, it's finally nice to see all of that kind of pay off and to see this character have an arc of some sort, which is awesome. So overall, like, that to me was just this nice little bow for the season.
Yeah, it definitely struck a chord because, for book readers, we were told originally it was going to be a trilogy, and then it was going to be 4 books. And, 5 books are out, and the 6th book shows no signs of ever coming out.
Right, yeah.
And so, I mean, most of that Jon Snow stuff is in the first book, and it's kind of been spread out throughout the TV show. But it's definitely more clear to you as a book reader that Jon Snow is very, very, very important, right? Like, the TV show, like, followed Robb Stark, where the books really didn't. Like, you knew the Red Wedding happened, but you didn't follow Robb through his war campaign like you did in the TV show. So, like, you've been waiting so long for this information, and I mean, I think for most book readers that are really invested, this theory was kind of a short putt, right? Like, okay, like most of us had kind of come to something like that kind of a conclusion, but it's great to get there. The unfortunate thing is, because the series has gotten so stretched, is that Dany's story has kind of gone in a big circle, she had a Dothraki horde, then she lost them, then she got them back, and then it's like,
yeah,
okay,
right, yeah.
But this particularly the storyline with Jon, I'll get into the technical aspects because I think those need to be addressed as well. But
for sure, yeah.
But the storyline, I found myself like really emotionally invested in that speech that little girl gave at the end of the last episode.
The internet has completely lost their mind for the girl Mormont. I don't know her name, but yeah.
And I mean, when that was happening, like once the scene started, like, it was telegraphed to you, hey, this is about to happen. And I was like in it. I was like emotionally like invested, and I mean, I could have run through a brick wall after that scene. I was like so pumped, right?
You'd have shaken your sword up in the air and said, "King of the North, King of the North," right?
And so that was such a great emotional payoff for me. Where, some of the other stuff in this, like the opening for the finale, where Cersei kind of blows up half the city, was well delivered. Though in terms of narrative, it's bizarre, right? That, like, none of the civilians are like, what just happened? like half the town just blew up. But no, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you kind of have to play this weird game of like, because we're past where the books were. How much of it is what George R. R. Martin has given the writers, and how much of it is the practical realities of what they have to do? Like,
Right.
a lot of people are kind of dismayed that that's how Marjorie was killed. And I was talking with my wife, and I was like, well, the actress who plays Marjorie is like the only legitimate, like, actual movie star in the cast. And, you know, she might have been very expensive for them to keep, and they knew she was going to die somehow, some way.
Mm-hmm.
And so they might as well, like, well, let's just cut it off at this season, so that way we don't have to pay
Sure.
her for next season. So, you know, just a thought that some of that stuff definitely comes into play. But yeah,
But I would also argue, just with George R. R. Martin, he has a way of kind of wrapping up certain storylines, where when you know somebody's going to die, it's like, okay, I kind of sense that Joffrey is that way for me. Ned Stark, honestly, rereading the books was that way. And there are other characters where it's like it's clear that they have a real purpose. Jon Snow, as much as I knew, like I think everybody knew, like there was no point to him really dying other than for him to be able to remove himself from the Night's Watch.
yeah.
That's like the only reason that he was there to die. So I get it, but
Yeah, and I would argue like the dying thing, that was one of the ones that I'm ready to read that in the book because I feel like it can be so much more well explained in
right,
a
yeah,
novel
yeah.
than how they pulled it off in the show, because the show is so anticlimactic and stretched out and weird. I mean, SNL had a skit about it, for crying out loud.
Right, yeah, yeah.
But can we just talk about some of the technical stuff, because
We have to, yeah.
that stuff was like a feast for guys like me that love imagery, right? Like I grew up reading comics and I love these kind of like heroic moments. And that shot where Jon is standing in front of the horses that are charging at him, like I knew Jon wasn't going to die, but just that shot within of itself made me think they're going to kill him again. They're like, I just had that thought for like 5 seconds because the shot was so powerful and so convincing.
Yeah,
that it was a completely hopeless situation.
Did you by chance watch any of the behind the scenes stuff on that Battle of the Bastards?
Yeah, I watched the YouTube.
Oh, like I mean, he was like the actor Kit Harington was frightened for his life there just for a second because that's real. Those horses charging him, that's not green screen. That's real. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's incredible. And like again, like a moment that like I don't even know that I breathed. You know what I mean? Like it was just you know, and I mean, just shot composition. That show never, and I mean never, uses slow-mo. And they used slow-mo right then and there, and it was like the best payoff, right? Because unbelievable. And there of course there was the one take footage of, you know, the battle sequence that was obviously great, but then there were other kind of one-shot moments that were you know, wonderful. The thing where the Onion Knight gets the thing at the top of the pyre and there's the sunset. A lot of people have talked about this shot, how it could have just been a photo, right? And the shot in the finale where Jorah, or I'm sorry, not Jorah, Tommen commits suicide. What a wonderful like way to deliver that, right? Very Hitchcockian. You know? Great. And so yeah, I mean, just love the stuff. I mean, some of the script stuff this season's rubbed me the wrong way. Like the Ramsay Bolton stuff was just so tiresome. Like I get it, he's evil. It's like, okay, yes, the Joker is somehow in the show. I get it. He's really really evil. Can we not waste 5 minutes on him?
Right, wrap it up. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, where's the show rest for you, Cameron? I mean, I know it's not Star Trek TNG. Like that's
I mean, yeah, as far as like season 3 of Star Trek, I don't think it'll ever match. But no, honestly, it is legitimately good television. You know, I mean, for me, it's like you have Game of Thrones, you have Mad Men, you have Breaking Bad. Like we're at a point where like with like Mad Men, it's like amazing dialogue. With Breaking Bad, it's like amazing editing. And with Game of Thrones, I mean, name another battle scene other than like Braveheart or Gladiator that has something that's so brutal and so affecting as far as like what it's doing. Um, and it's TV. It's not a film. It's not like a one-off thing with a multi-million-dollar budget. It's a multi-million-dollar budget, but it's for television. Like it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it, but I'm like consuming it like everybody else. And it's amazing to just be a part of like the zeitgeist of that in 2016. Like to me, that's incredible.
And I do want to say, in my mind, the real heroes of Game of Thrones are the people that do the sets, that do the wardrobes. I mean,
Dude. Yeah, costume design, production design, all of that. You're right.
It's out of this world because it never like. I like the Shannara series on MTV, right? Like it is, it is. It feels like they're cosplaying. You know what I mean? Like none of it feels lived in. None of it feels real. And sure, there are moments where Game of Thrones does not feel real, and I get that. But like when they're in a bar or when they're in a tavern or it just feels lived in, and that doesn't happen on accident, you know. And so I still there's a few shows that I would put this underneath in terms of script. Something like 6 Feet Under, I think, was going for a little bit more in terms of, you know, what it was trying to say. But man, it's unbelievable the level of quality. So, okay, got that out of our system.
Purged.
Cameron, if someone would like to talk to you about Game of Thrones or Magic the Gathering, where could they find you?
Twitter @Cameron_McCoy.
And I am @Curtis Now. Our official show feed is @SpikeFeedMTG. We will check you guys next week.